Go ahead.
Our mission, Helping Parents Heal, is a nonprofit organization dedicated to assisting bereaved parents to become shining light parents by providing support and resources to aid in the healing process. We go a step beyond other groups by allowing the open discussion of spiritual experiences and evidence for the afterlife in a non-dogmatic way. Affiliate groups welcome everyone, regardless of religious or non-religious background. Attendance today at this meeting is voluntary, and we are here for the benefit of learning from and sharing with other parents whose child has passed away. It is understood that our discussions are intended to be confidential and not designed to replace traditional therapy or spiritual counseling. However, these Zoom meetings are helpful to parents all around the world, and they are posted on YouTube so that affiliate members who are not able to attend this meeting live can also watch. Helping Parents Heal offers a wide variety of speakers to allow parents to be informed about many possible ways to heal, to connect with their children, and to learn about the afterlife. The views expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect those of Helping Parents Heal, and we ask that you take from their presentations whatever may benefit you personally. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, Sue. Thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you so much, Sue. And I'm going to go ahead and read a very short bio. I just want to say that I have been able to meet Sue personally. She is amazing. Again, she lives here in the Valley. We feel so fortunate that she does. Sue Frederick, lifelong intuitive and spiritual coach, is the author of Bridges to Heaven, True Stories of Loved Ones on the Other Side, I See Your Soulmate, I See Your Dream Job, Your Divine Lens, and Water Oak, The Happiness of Longing. As a master numerologist, career and grief intuitive coach, and soon to be ordained unity minister, she's taught hundreds of workshops for those who seek alignment with their soul's purpose and for those who are grieving. In her workshops and client sessions, she's witnessed the profound healing of slipping into your higher self for guidance and to connect with loved ones on the other side. Sue believes we can all connect with our departed for healing conversations, and that our consciousness is much more expansive than we understand it in this limited physical world. Her work has been featured in the New York Times, CNN.com, Real Simple, Yoga Journal, Natural Health, and Complete Woman magazines. And her website is www.suefrederick.com. And without further ado, please join me in welcoming beautiful Sue Frederick, and welcome, Sue. We're just so happy to have you here.
Oh, I love you, Elizabeth. Boy, it is such an honor to be here today, and such an honor to meet these people. You know, when I moved to Scottsdale 2 years ago, many of you are my clients. Actually, you know that my current husband, was diagnosed with cancer, and that brought us here to Arizona for him to be treated at Mayo. But I've always been asking, where are my people here? Who are my people? Why am I here? And meeting Elizabeth and this group, it's just, now I know I'm here and I'm home. So thank you very much. So on this day, July 13th, it is amazing that Elizabeth called me up last week and said, would you be willing to speak because someone had to postpone or cancel for today? And I said, what's the date? She said July 13th. And I knew that Paul, my departed husband, had put this in action, as well as Jake and Morgan and all the amazing kids we all love in the divine realms. So I thought I should start by talking about my first awakening to the divine realms. And like many of you, it came through the death of a loved one. And on July 13th, 1979, I was a mountaineering instructor. Imagine being in your 20s. I was 29. I was actually 28 when Paul was diagnosed, and we were Colorado outward bound mountaineering instructors. We were just enjoying the world. And we were leading groups through 3-week courses in the Colorado Rockies, living outdoors, just in touch with nature. It was just a beautiful experience. And in my immature way of viewing the world, I, at that time, believed that everything was about overcoming challenges, and that I could teach people to overcome their fears and help them conquer whatever, challenges were in their life. And I really thought, that's just kind of the meaning here. And then Paul was diagnosed with colon cancer. And the interesting part was he was diagnosed on July 13th, 1978, and he died on July 13th, 1979. So this date is my portal to the divine. So after a year of Paul's suffering, and many of you have lost loved ones to cancer, and he had colon cancer, and he was terribly sick for the last year of his life. And we did alternative and conventional treatments. But the most remarkable one was that we went to see a Native American healer in South Dakota, Chief Fool's Crow. And Paul was part Native American. And so his mother had arranged it. And a little more than a month before he died, we still believed we were going to turn it around and he would be okay. And we went to visit Chief Fool's Crow. Chief Fool's Crow spent 2 days with me and Paul, took us through all kinds of ceremonies, amazing Native American rituals. And Paul thought he would be healed there. But what Chief Fool's Crow told us, and he told us separately, he took Paul for a walk and said, you chose Sue for this journey because she's strong and she agreed to walk it with you and then carry on the learning. And Sue chose you because you're going to break her heart so wide that she will grow and evolve the way she wanted to. And when he told us that, that wasn't what we wanted to hear. That wasn't why we went to see a healer, but it was absolutely true. And I'll never forget that drive back home to Boulder after seeing Chief Fool's Crow. He also took away my voice. This is such a bizarre cosmic thing. When Chief Fool's Crow told me that Paul was going to die, I started to cry, and I was just like, oh, I don't want that. And I started instantly to get an inflamed throat, a terrible sore throat, and I got laryngitis for 2 weeks because by the time my voice came back, I didn't have anything more negative to say, and I had surrendered to the duty and the role of helping Paul die. So thank you, Chief Fool's Crow. But for Paul, it was more profound because Chief Fool's Crow told him that he would be with him, teaching him songs in his consciousness to help him cross over, and that he would be with him in spirit when Paul crossed over. So we drove home, went back to Boulder, tried another surgery, and on July 13th, he was at home with me. I was taking care of him with the hospice, and that's how he wanted it. Paul had said, I want to die at home in your arms. And suddenly he had a medical emergency, and our hospice nurse said, no, you've got to get him to the ER. This isn't how he wants to die. So we took him to the ER, and he went into a coma, and they put us in a hospital room. And suddenly I felt like I had let Paul down because I had promised him I would hold him in my arms and we would be at home when he crossed over. And I know many of you also struggle with how your loved one departed and if you did everything in your power. So I think when I tell you Paul's story, it's going to help you understand that it's always in divine order, however it plays out. So we're in this hospital room. He has slipped into a coma. His breathing is that horrible coma breathing that many of you know because you've experienced with your loved ones. And suddenly I look around and all my friends have arrived, and Paul's parents have arrived from Oklahoma, and the room is filled up and with people. And I felt like I had failed Paul, because here he was now in a coma in the hospital, not dying the way he wanted to die. And what if he was stuck in his body? I was worried that his soul, his spirit was stuck in his body in a coma. So I fell asleep from exhaustion and fatigue about a day into this, fell asleep on the floor in the hospital room. Instantly, Paul appeared in front of me, and he was as vivid to me in my half sleep state as probably I am to you on this Zoom screen right now. And he said, "Sue, I'm not stuck in that body. I'm free. But what are you doing on the floor? Get up, come and wrap your arms around me and I will cross. I'm just waiting for you to get it together." And I was like, oh my God. And I woke up, I stood up and said, everybody out except Paul's mom and me. And Paul was 34 at this time. And so it was still, his mother was still so devastated. And so we went, and Paul's mom stood on one side of him and I stood on the other. And we just rubbed his body. His breathing hadn't changed for more than a day. And we rubbed his body and said, "Paul, you are free. We let your spirit go to dance in the realms. And look at that beautiful Boulder day out there with the mountains so gorgeous that you love. Just, you're free to leave your body." And I saw as clear as I could see it, his soul, his spirit leave his body and fly out the window with one peaceful breath. It was like, ah. It was the most conscious exit, the most conscious final breath. And I got to hold him with love and witness it. Well, that was my life-changing moment, because from then on, I knew that there was more to this life than the physical world. For sure, I knew it. And I knew that there was a deeper meaning here, and that I had to figure out why I was still here on earth, because all I wanted to do then was go to the divine realms and be with him, as many of you also have felt. So my mission became, for many decades, figuring out through spiritual study, why are we here? And why am I still here if my loved ones are on the other side? And I've had many teachers and many amazing, profound experiences to help me understand it. But when Paul died, I was no longer upset. I was pulled into what I now understand, thanks to Dr. Moody, a shared death experience, where I was really lifted out of my normal consciousness. I mean, we went out in the hall to tell Paul's friends that he had died, and they thought I had done drugs or something. I mean, I was like, it was so beautiful. It was incredible. I saw his spirit, and they were all so devastated and crying. And I just couldn't go into that grief with them, because I knew Paul was not in his body. And that night, one amazing other piece, I drove myself home to the apartment that Paul and I had lived in. And this was 1979, before the internet, before cell phones, before Facebook. I walked in and the phone on the wall rang, and I picked it up, and Chief Fool's Crow in South Dakota had walked into town, because he had no phone or anything where he lived. He had walked into town, gotten a phone booth, called his contact in Denver, who had called me. And the phone call I walked into my apartment was from Chief Fool's Crow saying, "I'm with Paul. I've helped him cross, and I'm going to be helping him move up the realms. So be sure that in these next couple of days, you don't try to pull him down to be with you, because he's very attached to you. Let his soul rise up. And then when he's processed a few things, he'll be able to come and talk to you more and spend more time with you." Can you imagine walking home to a hospital from the hospital room and you get that phone call? Just another confirmation. So then I go to bed that night in the bed that Paul and I had shared. And when Paul and I were married, he would wrap his legs around me and his arms around me. And I would say, you know, Paul, I love your fuzzy legs, because they had the softest, most wonderful feeling. And I'd always say, you know, wrap your fuzzy legs around me. So that night I went to sleep in our bed. And at 2 a.m, I knew Paul was in bed with me. I felt him completely wrapped around me. I felt his fuzzy legs around my legs. And it was so vivid and so clear that I was like, for a minute, I was like, oh, Paul's here. Good. You know, and then this being in white reached over me and tapped Paul, and he lifted up and left. And I know that was his spirit guide just coming to say, you can't stay here with Sue. You have to keep moving. And so that was Paul's gift to me. That in many other experiences he has given me since then. He's always coming back to tell me how things work on the other side. He came back a little while ago to show me that he had an amazing job over there, a job that made me jealous because I wanted that job. He came to tell me that first I'd been teaching a grief workshop at Kripalu, and many of the attendees had lost loved ones to cancer, and they were having trouble, as we do, letting go of those memories of suffering. And as you all know, our loved ones are not in that state of suffering, and those memories are not real. It is just something that we get hung up on, that we need to release. So I had really worked on helping the grieving people release those memories and recognize that their loved one was not in that space. And I was kind of exhausted, and I got home, and Paul came to me that night vividly, and he said, you've just got to tell these people that suffering is not real. And he lifted up his shirt and showed me, because he had had all kinds of surgery scars on his belly when he was alive. And he had this porcelain skin that looked like an angel. There's no other way to describe it. And he said, the soul's essence does not suffer. And then he said, I got to go. And I said, wait, where are you going? And he said, I have a job to do, and I love my job. And he said, I help souls when they cross over to process their life. And then I woke up and I was just so jealous. I was like, God, I want that job. Like, I want to be up there doing that. But anyway, I still had work to do, and I'm still here because I'm still trying to evolve and learn and wake up like the rest of you. But I had one more gift, if it's okay to share with you. My girlfriend Chrissy died from leukemia the following year. So my soul made a plan here to totally wake me up in this lifetime, because if I hadn't gotten it right with Paul, Chrissy came along right after. Chrissy had been my first childhood girlfriend, and she was the girl who made me laugh, who was the most brilliant girl in the class. You know, we were growing up in the deep South, and the Beatles came out, and she and I were insane over the Beatles. To us, they represented a new kind of life, and we just were so excited about leaving the South when we went off to college. And she was one of the first girls who got into Georgetown University in 1969 because she was so brilliant. I wasn't brilliant. I got into University of Missouri, and it was north of the Mason-Dixon line, so I went. And Chrissy just excelled in her life in every way. And when Paul was sick, she was my comfort. She would come and visit and be with me and just help me with it. Well, a few months after Paul died, Chrissy came to see me. We went skiing, and her body was covered in bruises. By the time she got home, she was diagnosed with really bad leukemia. So I will say that this was the dark night of my soul. I had kind of rallied up after Paul died. And many of you know you've had more than one devastating loss. And it's when the second one comes along that you really have a choice point, because I, at that point, really battled my personal doubt about the meaning of life. Like, why was Chrissy now suffering this terrible exit? What is the purpose of life? These are all questions we ask when grief has touched our hearts. Chrissy went through, again, a whole lot of suffering, but at one point she had had a bone marrow transplant. She was doing better. And I was trying to get my life together, but I moved to Mexico to teach fitness. That's another story. But I was in Mexico in 1981 with the headband teaching fitness at Los Aerobicos de Mazatlan, trying not to grieve. That doesn't work, as we know. But Chrissy, one night I went to sleep and I knew Chrissy was still sick, but I thought she was doing okay. And I went to sleep one night, and all night long, Chrissy was with me, and we were laughing, and we were flying around, and she was showing me things. My stomach was hurting from laughing, the way Chrissy always made me feel like my muscles were exhausted from laughing. And I would wake up in the night and just go back to sleep. I'm with Chrissy, and it was so much fun. I just felt her essence with me the whole night. And I woke up in the morning and went, uh-oh, what happened? Chrissy must have crossed last night. And I finally got a call through to the States, and she had died that night. But the good news is she had come instantly to tell me that she was happy and free, and she had lifted me into that realm with her to show me the amazing big view, like this picture that her soul was enjoying and experiencing on the other side. Now, I just want to share one more really quick one. Is that okay, Elizabeth? So when Paul and Chrissy died, I mean, to be honest, if you'd known me in my 30s, you would have known I was struggling to figure things out. I was studying spirituality, but also living in Mazatlan, teaching fitness. Like, I just couldn't get plugged back in. So when I finally came back to the States and got back my career going again, I'm a writer. I had been a journalist for a long time. Somebody just wrote the sweetest little message there. Thank you so much for writing that. By the time I got my life together and started writing again, I would go to my father, who had always been my loving person, and I'd say, Dad, you just can't ever die now. Like, I need you here, because Dad was my comfort. And, and he would say, okay, Sue, I'm just going to have to live a long time, And then when I was in my 40s, I beautifully and miraculously got pregnant, and I'm so grateful for that. And so I had a baby girl with me, and my dad said to me one day, he said, now that you have Sarah, I think you'd be okay without me. And I was like, no, Dad, I wouldn't. But he was diagnosed with lung cancer and died in 4 weeks. So in lots of ways, he was kind of waiting for me to let him go. His mission here was done. And when I had my daughter, he knew that I would be okay. But the amazing thing of it is, when I was at the hospital with him, and my whole family was there, my siblings and their kids and my mom, I'm never the most loved person in my family because they're very conservative and they're Catholic. And as you can see, I don't fit in that box. So I'm the weird sister. And on the day Dad was dying, I wanted to be with him because I knew I could help him. But my siblings were going, no, he's not dying. It's not going to happen today. We're going to give him another treatment. He's going to be fine. But I knew he was crossing. And so they sent me home to babysit the kids. And so I took all the young toddlers home, and I sat down on the couch, and I've been meditating every day since the 70s. That has been the greatest gift of my life, to meditate every day. So as soon as I got the kids home, I sat on the couch and I was just meditating. I got them down for a nap, and I was using a mala because I love malas. You just can say a mantra on every bead. And as I was sitting there meditating, My father appeared as vivid as I looked to you. And he said, he was joking around with me, like making me laugh the way he did when he was young and healthy and everything. And for a minute, I was like, Dad, you're such a goofball. And I was like, Dad, what are you doing here? And I knew that he had left his body, but I picked up the phone and called the hospital. My brother said, no, he's having a heart attack. They're giving him CPR, and it's chaos here because he had been dying from lung cancer. And my family wouldn't allow them to put those orders in that said, do not resuscitate. So they were doing CPR in there. And, you know, he had been really sick. He was dying. And anyway, but the truth of it is he was already free. So again, another message to any of you grieving parents, if you worry about the last hours of your loved one's life, when you think they may have been suffering, they were probably already free of that body. And my dad came back to show me that not only was he free, but he was joking around like his young self. And he came to me to show me that. And it was such an honor. So that brings me quickly to what the point I wanted to make for everyone today is that our departed, especially our departed children, come to us with incredibly strong messages. And the children have been coming through for the past several years to me when I work with parents with a message that it's really important that us humans who are left here live with one foot in the physical and one foot in the divine, and not just fully focused on the physical. That consciousness is shifting, that this is a very important time of our soul evolution together, and that the awakened ones, like those who've been touched by grief, need to really be aware that they keep their consciousness also in the divine as well as the physical. So that's a hard task, as we know, but I think there's a few things we can do to help us. And one, you know, I studied Hinduism for many years because I've studied all religions. That's why I'm also becoming a unity minister. I believe all paths have God in them. And when I studied Hinduism, the Hindus talk about these 4 steps that we can do to connect to the divine. And I think this is what the kids are kind of asking us to do. Yes, we can go out and have fun and go shopping and do all this stuff, exercise, but also the 4 steps are, number 1, selfless service. And to me, this just means here at Helping Parents Heal, you guys comfort each other. I mean, reaching out to a grieving person, offering comfort, or doing volunteer, anything like that where your focus is not on you and you are actually helping someone else. If you can make that your career, that's even better, because that puts us into a role of selfless service, which instantly connects us to our divinity. Then the second one is meditation and a calm mind. Now, the truth is we all have crazy monkey minds, I call them. They are filled with negative chatter and thoughts, and we need them to be here on earth in this physical world because we have to figure out how to do the laundry, how to get a job, all that stuff. So we need our mind. But our mind hampers our ability to connect to the divine. And this is why when you're grief-stricken, you do connect to the divine because your mind is in shock. It begins to shut up. Your mind suddenly has no answers for you. So your heart is the prominent part of you, your heart chakra. And your heart chakra is a pure channel to the divine. So through meditation every day or anything you can do to quiet the mind, you instantly open the heart and you have that beautiful connection to the divine. And that's where our departeds dance and communicate with us, and where we see the bigger picture of our soul reviews. The third one, the Hindus said, was conversations with the divine. Now, I think that's such an interesting phrase, conversations with the divine, because in Christianity, we might call that prayer, right? When you're praying to God. Or in our healing work, we also might call that automatic writing, where we connect to our departed and then channel in and write whatever they're telling us. That's a very powerful tool principle for connecting to your divine and your departed. And the fourth principle, they say, is philosophical and spiritual inquiry. Now, to me, what this means is no matter how old we are, we have to keep learning. We have to keep growing. We have to study. I mean, this was one of the reasons I went to school 4 years ago to become a unity minister, and it was hard as heck. And I thought my brain wasn't going to be able to do it. But just the process of studying and writing papers every week, you know, it kind of expanded me in a way that I wanted and needed to, because we all get stuck. We all get hunkered down in our little routines and ideas, and we all need steps that open us up again. So I'm going to add a fifth step here, and then I'll shut up and we can do question and answer. The fifth step is becoming and honoring the pure heart. Do you remember in the Bible when Jesus said, "Blessed are the pure of heart, for they shall see God"? I can hardly even say those words without getting tears. Blessed are the pure of heart, for they shall see God. You know, Jesus was an enlightened teacher, and he was telling us that we can have a pure heart, and that when we don't pollute it with our minds and all the crazy stuff we do here, being cynical, being snarky, you know, all the things we do, our essence is the pure heart. And by embracing that pure heart in ourselves, we help other people open their pure heart. And that's where we connect to each other in a loving way, but it's also what connects us to the divine. And if you know, if you've had a reading, if you've connected to your child, at least the way I work, they come in with love. Their message is powerful and emotional, and it's from the pure heart. It's one pure heart to the next. So I think that's my 30 minutes. I'll leave you with a Shakespeare quote. My crown, Shakespeare said, "My crown is in my heart, not on my head." And that image of the crown in your heart chakra, that is your crown of glory. Thank you so much.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Sue. And we've had so many people talking about how helpful this has been. And one of the questions that Sherry first is asked, when you were talking about meditations, is there one that's particularly helpful, or one that maybe you have that you use to be able to meditate?
Yeah, you know, I was blessed. I grew up Catholic, as some of you did, and I prayed the rosary as a little girl. And what I realized now was that I had spent past lifetimes as a Hindu using a mala to meditate. So the rosary is just it was a comfortable way of praying because it put me in a meditative state. Then when I went on in my 20s and I learned Transcendental Meditation, it was that same process of repeating sacred sound. And then I studied with a Hindu teacher who taught me about saying a mantra on every bead. And the reason this helps is that I use the mantra Om Namah Shivaya. Those are very high frequency sounds, and they mean I connect to God, or I connect to divinity. And if you say the mantra Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, and you just keep repeating that, you can do it quietly or you can do it out loud. It puts you into this rhythm that becomes effortless, then that your mind just settles down. I always say it's like giving a dog a bone. Say, go chew on this mantra over here. And then your thoughts will come in, but you just notice them and you refocus back on the mantra. And having your hand moving the beads is great, because if your hand stops moving the beads, you go, oh, I'm thinking, I'm not doing mantra. Oh, back to the mantra, Om Namah Shivaya. And one thing I want to add to that is, grief is a process that really lasts for the rest of our lifetime, but that's okay because it has opened us to our divinity. But we have to also honor that we need to cry sometimes. And, you know, I'm a big crybaby. I cry easily and often, but I think that helps me clear my heart chakra of pain so that I can be more open-hearted. And today, July 13th, I sat down to do my morning mantra meditation. And I thought, I'm feeling good. I'm okay. And I sat down to meditate. And within about 10 minutes, I was crying and crying. And I realized, it's just grief. It moves through us. We don't need to ask why. We don't need to hold on to it. We can use mantra and meditation to just let it pour through us and then release.
That's beautiful. Boy, there are so many things that are being written that I have to first read you because so many people are saying, love this. Exactly. I love this and totally agree about the heart. Talking about the heart and the brain. Love her message. So helpful. We love you, Sue. Thanks for the inspiration. Amazing message. Thank you, Sue. I would love to understand more about what is meant by having a pure heart. Maybe you could talk a little bit more about that for Diane.
Yeah. Well, first of all, you already have one. Everybody has one. Our soul is the essence of goodness, of godness, of love, of loving God consciousness. That's just who we are. That's our nature. And yet we drop into this physical world and we're taught from a young age that, oh, we have to be smart. We have to pass that test. And then we're kind of taught this mean social behavior that is acceptable for some reason in the human realms. And we become mean to people. We decide people are enemies. This is all ego stuff. This is the mind, because your beautiful, pure heart is just the same as it was when you were a child, when you were a baby, and you didn't harbor ill will to anyone. You loved everybody, and you knew as a child that you were connecting to the divine. You were so angelic. And then it's just being human and trying to survive here. And it is very hard here. So it's no flaw on you that you developed all these other traits and attributes that helped you survive physically, but may not have helped you stay in touch with your pure heart. So whenever you're feeling cynical about the world or angry or locked down in your negativity, you can just put your hand in front of your heart chakra and just focus on feeling divine love pouring through you, and then out of your heart chakra, out to the world. That's the most amazing feeling, because that divine love comes pouring in through the top of your head, out through your heart chakra, out to the world. And then you can focus it on anyone who needs healing. And then you'll know how powerful your pure heart is.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Angie is saying, wow, this is exactly what I needed to hear tonight. Thank you, Chase's mom. People are asking what the beads are called. So I think maybe if you could just reiterate that they're mala
This
beads.
is called a mala, and you can get them on Amazon these days for like $10. And I have collections of them, like it's obnoxious. Other people collect important, expensive things. I have probably 100 malas.
So they have all different kinds of stones that represent the root chakra, the sacral, the solar plexus. I mean, not necessarily in every mala, but some of them do have all of the chakras in them, which is really wonderful. So another person is asking, do you start on the blue beads? And I'm not sure why that question is being asked. But Cody's asking that, or do you use
everybody? I think there are many different approaches, but my Hindu teacher taught me to always start at the guru bead, or that bottom bead is called, you can call it the God bead if that's more comfortable, that you start there and just work around and you go in the same direction, but you don't finish. You have to finish back at the God bead. But I also want to say, I don't believe in ritual. Like, I don't want you to restrict yourself. If you can sit down and quiet your mind in some other way and you don't feel comfortable with a mala or a mantra, that's fine. However it works for you to quiet your mind. Because one of the problems with all religions is they put rules and oh, you've got to do it this way and you have to follow the mala. I mean, that then you're starting to almost feel like a Catholic who has to say the rosary the right way. But God lives in us. God consciousness rules this universe. We can simply connect by saying, please help me lift my energy up today and feel better. Divine beings, God, departed loved ones, and we will feel a shift. We will feel ourselves being lifted up.
That's so beautiful. Diana is saying, wow, thank you so much, Sue, for helping me understand the pure heart. So helpful to me as I work with my grief for my son who passed 3 months ago. I want to connect more with him, and this is truly inspiring and helpful, which I agree. I think that it's important for all of us to realize that we were put on earth with a pure heart. All of us have
Yes.
pure hearts. We're all wonderful people. We just have to rediscover it, unfortunately, for a lot of us.
And one thing I would like to say to her, Elizabeth, is because she's still in the raw grief, a way to maybe connect more intentionally. The first few months are tough, because we are grieving. But if you can just say, all right, I'm going to wake up in the morning and sit down first thing in the morning and do either prayer or mantra or something. And then I'm going to think of a happy memory of my loved one. And that's hard when we're grieving. But if we can shift into a memory that makes us smile about that loved one, and suddenly we notice that we're smiling and we're remembering what a goofball they were, and now our energy is shifting, we're laughing, we're being raised up vibrationally. Now your departed can communicate with you more easily, because when we're in our deepest sadness, it is very hard for them to get through that to us.
That's beautifully said. Sue is saying, my sister has a severely disabled son who is like an infant and does not speak. Can she communicate with his spirit, or does he communicate with the other side? So I think she's thinking about you and Paul, and then you and your dad.
Paul showed me, and my dad showed me, that they were not trapped in their bodies. And I would imagine that your son travels in the divine realms and also talks to you intuitively. And it's a soul to soul communication. And, when we're on earth, we get attached to these physical bodies and how they should perform, but his body is perfectly designed for his soul growth in this lifetime. He may have come here to simply experience the physical realm while being mostly connected to the divine. He may have come to help you awaken in this lifetime to the divine.
That's beautiful. So it's her sister, it's her nephew, but that's really good news for her and for her sister as well. And I don't know if you had planned to, but I would love for you to tell a little bit about numerology and how you got into numerology, because it was mind-blowing for me to hear what you had to say. Could you tell us a little bit about it? Because we don't have, I think maybe we haven't had any numerologists come.
It was a gift that was given to me a couple of weeks after Paul died. I was still in a very altered state of consciousness. Actually, I wasn't able to eat for a while. I had quite an experience with my shared death experience. So a friend who was kind of worried about me said, I want you to talk to a numerologist, a friend of mine, and she set up a reading for me. And I kind of didn't even want to do it. Like, I was just out of it. And this numerologist sat in front of me and looked at my path and Paul's path and explained our soul agreement, and blew my mind, because I totally understood from a soul level why I had agreed to go through the experience of Paul's death and why he had chosen that. And then by working with her, she became my mentor. In 1979, there really weren't a lot of books about it, and there was no internet. And so I worked with her all the time, and she taught me a lot. And then I kind of became obsessed with it, because I believe we can find many different tools here that help us remember that we're bigger than just a physical being. Astrology, numerology, works for you to help lift you up into that soul's view. But I've always had a natural gift for numerology in that I start with the numerology. I start with your birth path if you're my client, and I meditate on that. And then your soul just pours through, and I see your mission, and then I write it down. I do automatic writing, and this is all before the session because I do a folder for you and a chart, and I channel in the writing. And then when I work with you, I help you understand, you are here on purpose because this is your path and this is what you came to do. And this is your soul agreement with your departed. And it really helps people to understand the gift of grief and the gift of their challenges and the gift they've come to share through their work. So all of my books have numerology in them, and all of my sessions, we start with the numerology and it expands from there.
Well, that's beautiful. And as I say, the numerology session was so amazing to me because it was based on things that were actually fixed in books. This is the way that this is supposed to play out.
And for any of my clients here who know about this, Morgan, Elizabeth's son, is a 33, right? You would have guessed if you know my numerology. Highly evolved soul, not meant to be here long.
Yeah.
And that's something I want to say. When I work with grieving parents, so many of their departed children, and this started years and years ago at workshops where I'd be doing the paths of their departed children, and we'd go around the room, and like all those kids were master souls, highly evolved. And it didn't matter if they had overdosed or had addictions. That was a sign of how sensitive and highly evolved they were, that they really couldn't handle being in the physical world in a physical way. And they never intended to stay long. And I think Lori might be on here today, one of my very first parents I ever worked with, and her son, she was from Boulder, and her son crossed over suddenly. And boy, he was the teacher, my first teacher, showing me that, quit thinking of addiction and drugs as negative. It's just a process for a soul. So
That's beautiful. I was wondering, there's one question here, and we usually always get a question to ask the people who come to speak to our group their own views on this question. And it is, how do you feel about children who transition by suicide? Is there any difference in the way that they transition, or is there any difference in anything?
I've been very blessed. I've been very blessed to work with a lot of parents of children who crossed over early. And by communicating with their children, what I believe is, as you guys know already, there are certain choice point exits in our lifetime. And when we hit upon them, we can say, hey, not our conscious mind, our soul, please be sure that you understand our conscious mind avoids the truth at all cost, but our soul knows what's going on. So our soul hits an exit point, and we might say either, I don't think I'm going to get to fulfill the thing I came to do here. It feels like it's just not working out for me or something, or I can't do it. I don't want to do it. And they might choose what our culture calls suicide as an exit. But it is a possibility that was already in the plan. It was already in the soul agreement. And when they cross over, because of the pain that they have caused their loved ones, more than any other soul, they do a huge soul review, process it all, and then really spend their time helping their loved ones they've left behind. It's like the duty they accept as an honor in exchange for the sudden early exit. Now, I'm not condoning suicide. I'm just saying, this is what I've experienced by talking to these souls. And they are radiant beings on the other side. They've been through a soul review. They've learned so much. And sometimes they learn, oh, well, maybe if I'd stayed, things would have gotten better, but this is as far as I could go at this point. And so I think my heart is with every parent who has had to experience that, but please know there's no guilt in this for you. This was the child's choice. And if it happened, it means it was meant to happen. It was that soul's plan.
That's beautifully said. And in fact, Angie is saying, my son passed of an accidental overdose, and I've never heard anyone articulate it that way. So absolutely beautiful and healing. So thank you. And then Tina is saying, same, Angie. But now I wonder if anything is accidental, is what Tina is saying.
Well, as soon as we all cross over, we'll know everything. And then we have to come back and tell all of our loved ones who are still here. But, the question of accident, honestly, in my heart, from Paul, everything he's told me, and Chrissy, I really don't believe there are accidents. I believe that there is a choice point where we might say, oh, I could die from a heart attack or a car accident or something, but that's the time I'm going to leave. We might not have it set in stone how we're going to leave, but the soul plan, like I've been told what age I'm going to exit, and I don't care about the details. I don't need to know, but I know that my soul kind of has this exit plan, and that's my deadline for growing and evolving and opening my heart for loving kindness, because that's what I've come to learn and to master. And grief has been my greatest teacher.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Well, yes. And grief has been all of our best and greatest teachers. You're right. Sherry's asking a question, and I'd like to ask it in both ways, if possible. She's saying, in what ways can they help us after they have transitioned? But also, how can we help our children and our loved ones in spirit when they've transitioned? So
Well, first, let me tell you, when they cross over, they are not alone. I mean, they're having a lot more fun than we are. I mean, everybody I love who's on the other side has come back again and again to show me that this is the hard part. This is the lonely part here on earth. And when they cross over, they're with soul friends, soulmate people that they've been in a soul posse with for many lifetimes. They're with ancestors. They're just having a learning experience. So for example, Chrissy, my girlfriend, works in the library. It's called the Library of Souls, and she researches lifetimes and helping, she loves her life over there. And I know that other souls that have come and told me about what they do, they're completely happy on the other side. So we don't need to help them, but they are concerned when they look at us and see us lost in our pain and fear, and not trying to lift up and open our hearts. And I'm not saying we have to be happy or anything. I'm just saying to try to open our hearts in spite of the pain, and even just do a little exercise, like go out to Starbucks and tell the barista she's beautiful, and tell everybody they're wonderful, and just pump the love, because then we are living with the pure heart. And then our loved ones are looking at us and going, all right, that's good. When you cross over, you're going to be happy that you've been living that way. It's all about learning to love. And that sounds so simple and almost stupid, but isn't that ironic? That's why we're in this crazy world.
Well, and when we get to that life plan and we are able to see how that saying to that barista that she's beautiful affected her, but then
Right.
probably affected 10 other people in the
That's right.
butterfly effect. That's something that's going to be absolutely amazing, but not nearly as amazing as being able to hug every single one of these
Yes.
kids when we get over there. There's going to
Yes.
be this huge long line of beautiful kids
Ah,
lined up waiting for each one of us when we get over there. It's going to just be so amazing.
oh.
Um, Jojo is asking, you were talking about the fact that you know your exit point. Can you see other people's, and is this through numerology?
You know, I don't ask to see other people's. I don't want to know other people's. I would not feel that that would be a helpful thing to tell people. Mine came during a soul regression experience that I had with the amazing Rob Schwartz. I did one of his group workshops. I'd actually been told it before in a dream. And then when I did a soul regression workshop with Rob Schwartz, Paul was there telling me some things, and he was the one saying, you know, you still have some work to do and it's going to be, and he gave me the amount of time. And he said, but when you get here, he told me he was going to get to train me to do his job when I crossed over. So I better be good and really fulfill my mission so that when I cross over, Paul will teach me how to help people process their lives. That just sounds like the greatest work.
You guys will be climbing mountains.
Yes.
That's for sure. Oh my goodness gracious. Just as I know Morgan's climbing lots of mountains in heaven right now. Amy's saying, yes, grief has been my greatest teacher yet. Let's see. And I'm wondering, in terms of books that you've written, people are asking about the numerology. Have you written a book specifically about numerology? The Bridges one doesn't, I know it has some elements of it in there.
Yeah. Well, let me just say, I've never written a book totally focused on numerology. I have just talked about it in all of my books and given demonstrations. I do teach classes about it, and I'm going to be teaching an online class about it in about a month, I think. I'll be posting that on my website. But there are now there's numbers and numbers of great books on numerology, but you know, everybody brings their unique spin to it. And so I do look at it not as a label, oh, you're this. It's like, oh, you came in on this path, which means that you came to learn this and to bring this gift to the world, but you're going to do it exactly in your unique way. And so that's how I help people. In fact, my first book was all about career, about helping people use numerology to do their true work in the world.
That's very interesting. So can you tell us a little bit about how to get in touch with you? First of all, obviously, www.suefrederick.com, and that'll be on the YouTube video. What's coming up? You have a numerology.
Yes, I'm speaking at Unity of Boulder, which will be online on August 1st. And that talk is really interesting. It's called Proof of the Divine, because a lot of people, you know, that pushes their buttons to think that anybody could have proof. I don't have proof, but you all have proof. So I'm going to talk about that. And I'm speaking at Unity of Prescott, but I don't think that one's online, and that will be in August. And then I've got a bunch of videos on my website, and workshops are posted on there. And right now I'm not thinking of what my workshops are, but I'll be posting more of them. And I want to give a shout out to my Gail McCreesh, because I love her so much. And I started working with her a long time ago, and her beautiful son, Jake, who you guys know, he's just amazing on the other side. And Gail was the one who kept saying, you have to meet Elizabeth. You have to get connected with Helping Parents Heal. And so thank you, Gail, for connecting me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Gail. I'm so glad that you connected us. And, you know, also, I just think it's wonderful that you're here, that you're just here in the Valley. And
Elizabeth, now I know you're the reason I came.
You're so
I mean, really, Gene came here to heal and he's doing really well. And I'm so grateful for that. And by the way, I want to give a shout out to him because as you can see, I'm not just an easy, normal person. And he has put up with me for 20 years and he loves me and he embraces me for being who I am. And I am very, very grateful for that. And so we want to see him living a long, happy, healthy life here.
Yes, and we do too. And we're just so happy that you are here. And in any case, thank you all for being on here. We're just so grateful to have all of you here and all of your kids as well. And if everything is going right, Irene has already unmuted everyone, or let
Yes.
everybody
Yep.
unmute.
Everyone can
Okay.
unmute.
Hi, Sue.
Oh,
Thank you. That was
Love
awesome.
you.
Thank
Love
you.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. It
Thank
was wonderful.
you.
Thank you.
Great.
This was
Oh,
great.
Thank you, Sue.
Oh,
Bye-bye.
I love you guys.
Thank you.
Lynn, bye. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Bye.
you.
See you on Thursday.
And Roseanne.
Okay.
Roseanne.
Bye, Sue.
Oh, Mona. Oh, God.